I'm back, and I guess it's time to talk about the guy who lives in a society. So, Joker is directed by Todd Phillips and is the latest from DC Entertainment. It tells the definitive origin story of the iconic clown prince of crime, played, this time, by Joaquin Phoenix. Now, I have been intrigued by this movie for a long time. I think I was on that Shazam high, a movie so good that it pretty much made me a DC fanboy for life. And when the trailer came out for this, it promised something entirely different from any other comic book movie we'd seen before. And then it won the Golden Frickin' Lion. So, needless to say, I was pretty stoked before I saw it last night. And I gotta say, it did not disappoint. Now, obviously, there's a lot of controversy around this movie, and I'm not exactly going to brush it off like I did with Captain Marvel, as that movie was legitimately just an unassuming blockbuster with little to no strong social messages to delve into. The same can't really be said for Joker, which, unlike Venom, I think fully embraces its solo villain movie concept. This is Joker's movie. It's the Joaquin Phoenix show through and through. It's fair to say that you are supposed to sympathize with him in this movie, but I don't think you're supposed to, think that his actions are completely justified or correct. But at the same time, I don't think the movie does a great job proving him wrong, and if you're not a fan of dark humor, yeah, there's gonna be some moments that don't really click for you, but I think the character of the Joker himself has just always lent itself to dark humor. He's the guy who laughs when he's beat up by Batman. He laughs at the crazy, the insane, the dark, the horrible. And that's just the essence of this character, and I think this movie does a great job capturing that. Still, the movie doesn't try to prove him wrong. It's not like The Dark Knight, where Joker, claims that people, claim to be good-natured. They claim to have all these rules, but they'll drop them at the first sign of trouble. And then there's, that scene on the boat where he threatens to blow up one of them. And in the end, it turns out the citizens of Gotham are legitimately good people. There's nothing like that in this movie, but I understand what it's going for. And I think we're just giving Todd Phillips a little too much credit here. I mean, look at A Clockwork Orange. He didn't invent this. That movie had a pretty dark sense of humor, and at the end, we're supposed to feel that the mental institution has gone too far to punish this raping, murdering psychopath. And I don't think filmgoers in the 70s were having the same kind of exhausting discourse we've subjected ourselves to now. This isn't new. There are problems with Todd Phillips' script, which we'll get into later, but I think if you find yourself tearing up at Arthur's plight or cheering him on at the end, there's more likely something wrong with you rather than the film. But I think, in general, all this controversy is just taken away from the actual merit of this movie. Let's talk about that. It's really freaking good. I will admit that I found some of the marketing around this movie pretentious. I mean, it's included in AMC's Artisan program. Really? A movie put out by a major studio that has a deliberately low budget, but still ties in with a pretty lucrative franchise? Yeah. No, guys. But still, it's refreshing to see such a scaled-back, character-driven comic book movie for once. We sort of got that with Logan back in 2017, but this is a major step up, in my opinion. It feels way more intimate and slow than most blockbusters in the past 20 years, and you could tell there were no strings attached when it came to getting this movie made. They really went for that R rating. Holy cow. I mean, Marvel would not touch this with a 10-foot pole. And I'm really glad DC stepped up to the plate and took a bit of a gamble. Gotta address the elephant in the room. Yes, this film does take a bit of inspiration from Martin Scorsese, and having watched Taxi Driver and King of Comedy recently, I can definitely see where the overlap is. It definitely borrows certain plot points here and there, and it might be in the same vein as them, but I didn't find it to be a carbon copy of those movies. It still is a pretty singular take, in my opinion. It's just nice that while the MCU has embraced the streamlined, crossover-y, epic side of comics as a whole, DC has tried to experiment a little. And I'm glad that audiences seem to have an appetite for both, because I want both from both studios. Adding to that, this probably has some of the most interesting filmmaking I've seen in a superhero movie for a while. I mean, most of these DC movies already look pretty. Zack Snyder has more of an eye for visuals than a hand for screenwriting, but this was pretty next level. The camera is super versatile in this, and the color palette is unlike anything I've seen. Even though it's supposed to be gritty and realistic, it felt like it was painted on the screen rather than uploaded from a digital camera and plucked out of a soundstage like a lot of the more bland Marvel movies can feel like, including Endgame. The score, too, is super intense. If I were to listen to it without the context in the movie, I think I'd still damn near have an anxiety attack. And, of course, you gotta talk about Joaquin Phoenix. I mean, he kills it. I tried to imitate an opening to very little success, and it's just nothing like hearing it on the loudspeakers. And he just looks so sickly and deranged. It's impossible to feel comfortable or secure anytime he's on screen. Even when he's being victimized, you're just always anticipating when he's gonna crack. As much as I am on record saying I don't love The Dark Knight, though, I'm gonna say that I don't think this version quite surpasses Heath Ledger's turn in that movie. There's more of an obvious anchor for that character, and since he doesn't appear throughout that whole movie, they make sure that his every word matters. Every moment, every scene. And I can't see this movie becoming nearly as iconic as any singular scene with Ledger in that film. But honestly, that's not what I'm thinking about when I watch this movie. I'm not comparing it to other things. It's an Elseworld story, after all. It's, for the most part, completely standalone. And if you don't like it, I'm sure you'll get 1,000 other Jokers in the coming years. So I think this is where we're going to venture into the realm of spoilers, so if you don't want to get spoiled for this movie, skip to this time in the video, and here we go. Alright, so remember how I said that this movie was completely standalone? Of course you did. It was literally a few seconds ago. If you didn't hear that, you aren't paying attention, man. Well, I like the 99% of this movie that is standalone, but they just couldn't resist the Batman fan service, sweet fan service. And they randomly inserted a really poorly handled scene depicting the death of Bruce Wayne's parents for no reason. Look, I was on board with how they implemented Thomas Wayne into this movie. I like that since the Joker is the protagonist of this movie, we're gonna see it how he sees it. Of course, Bruce Wayne's father was an arrogant, snooty rich guy. Or at least that's how the less fortunate population of Gotham City sees it. I like how Penny Fleck, Arthur's mother, was so delusional that she thought this really busy man would save them, and Arthur has completely lost faith in the system already at this point. And, anyway, we could talk about this movie's take on mental illness and class for days, but let's just get back to that nerdy stuff. So, people who don't read comics and make movies seem to have this odd obsession with tying in the Joker to the death of Bruce Wayne's parents. And while this isn't as blatant as the scene in Batman 89 where Joker himself kills them, at least that movie did something with it and it changed the dynamic a little bit. Here it just feels super throwaway and unnecessary. The person who kills Bruce's parents should be just some random crook, not in any way tied to an arch nemesis. They ain't Spider-Man 3 with the Sandman twist or whatever. That frickin' retcon. And aren't Joker and Batman supposed to be parallels? That doesn't really work if one is 40 to 30 to 40 years older than the other. I also just don't get what was going through Thomas and Martha's minds in that moment. Yeah, honey, we've been reading on the news about all these clown riots, but instead of taking a limo to a safe house or something, let's just go walk down that dark alleyway there. That seems safe. I know Thomas Wayne is supposed to be mean in this movie, but I didn't know he was supposed to be dumb. Another problem with the script is how some of Todd Phillips' irritating worldviews, that he's expressed on the press tour, seem to have seeped into this movie. I mean, I don't think that Todd Phillips is endorsing violence or anything, but is really, really stupid to have Joker, the villain of your movie, spout crap about how we need to admit that dark humor is funny, after just saying to the audience in that talk show he was on that he's not trying to make a political statement. I mean, I know we're supposed to separate the art from the artist, depth of the author, and all that, but that was a little too self-indulgent for my taste. All in all, though, I thought this was a really great movie. I have some issues with the script here and there. I'm not going to hang every line of dialogue in this movie on my wall or anything, or remember it forever, but there's a lot to appreciate here, and I think it definitely lived up to the potential as just a really solid character study. I'd be interested to see more projects like this from DC, and while the controversy can get pretty tiring after a while, it's cool to see us actually thinking about a superhero movie when so many have asked us to turn our brains off. Looking at you, Far From Home and Ant-Man the Wasp, you guys suck. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you did. Subscribe if you want to check out the rest of my content for some reason. And as always, I will see you in the next video. Bye.